talking. The one thing that I always like about you, man, is like you've got a really strong work ethic.
Yeah.
And I remember this from your reffing. Like you would ref 12-hour days because you do RA center and then you do footy sevens. And I thought that was just brilliant.
Yeah. Well, basically, I refing was my main source of income at the time, right? And it pays all the extra bills. And I was always full time at school, so basically, it's like the perfect fit where I can kind of do something active, get good money, and the hours were always perfect to accommodate school.
Right.
Um, and so it got to a point where I wanted to be actually like just really good at refing for the sake of how I am as a ref to like improve. And because when people give me feedback, I always consider what they're saying. If they're yelling at me or whatever, then I'm like, well, they might just not be having the best time. I might be helping them not have the best time, but I don't really have any constructive like feedback to work with there, right? So after a while, I just decided that the money's good, some exercise, might as well. My whole Sunday, I didn't have anything at the time. I never did anything Sunday, and I stopped playing Sundays, so I would just ref 7 a.m. till, I don't know, 7 p.m. And even sometimes if someone asked me to ref a game at Louisville, I would go there afterwards. So it was just
Okay.
certain days, as if I could ref all day, I would ref all day.
That's That's insane. Like you're one of the few people I think that has a passion for the sport that outstrips mine. Like I don't know if I could do that all day.
Yeah, it's I don't know. You could call it lucky or unlucky, but in terms of people like abusing you in some way, I just kind of let a lot of the comments roll off, and I just go like, okay, next game's a new game, or even that moment, like something happened. Okay, let's get through the next segment or whatever, because I'm always trying to um, remove myself from an instance that occurs and try and just make a better judgment or a decision the next immediate time.
Hmm.
So, I mean, as I'm working, I'm just like, well, I know I've mentally prepared myself to go through all day, so I can't let one instance kind of dictate the rest of my day. I have to just be like, okay, I made a mistake. I either admit it to them, depending on who they are, because certain people, if you admit a mistake, like they're just going to be on you the whole game, or you just kind of go, okay, I did that. Let's try and get back. You know, I try not to take, even if someone is upset with me, I try not to do anything against them or provoke them into more confrontation. Uh,
Mm. That's smart. Like you're like that's that's strong mental fortitude. And like another thing that I really stands out from you is I don't think I've ever seen you angry. I'm trying to think back, and like one of the things that I'm doing here as I'm looking up in my head is like, has there ever been a time that I've seen Cam angry? And you've been upset.
yeah.
Seen you upset, but angry, I don't think I've ever seen you angry. And you're always just like, I don't know if it's like the English. No, I don't know, because you're English, you're half English, half Italian, right?
Yeah.
Those are passionate bloodlines. So how do you manage that calmness?
Uh, like my brother is actually probably better than me, and I think it's just when we were raised, we did a lot of different sports, and we've been fortunate enough to have very level-headed coaches who are like, "You're here for a purpose. You're here to play. If something happens, like his coach was a lot more about just hitting players hard and stuff like that, but my coach was a lot more like, if something happens and the ref doesn't make the call, like you'll get them back through playing the game. If you get out of your element and then let them kind of distract you from the focus of what we're here to do, then they're kind of getting the better of you, right? So some people play off that like, oh, you're taunting me, I'll taunt you, and then you kind of win that game and then get the better of them. But mine was always just like, whatever anyone is doing, I'm more primarily focused on myself and how I'm performing or how I respond to something, rather than how someone else is trying to dictate how I should or should not respond to something.
Right.
Um, yeah, like if you've ever seen my brother or coached him or refed him or whatever,
Yeah.
he,
Yeah.
yeah, he doesn't say anything. So he'll get clipped or whatever. Like there's no reaction at the end. He'll be like, yo, like whatever. This guy was like a dick or whatever. But I'm just like, yo, you're a big guy. You could easily just clean him. He just doesn't, right? He just plays the game. And a lot like me, I just like, I will get upset from time to time. It's rare because most of the time I'm aware of what's going on. And I'm like, sometimes I will hold on to the ball. So I know that most people are not trying to hurt you. if you're
Right.
like a showboater and you like trying to embarrass them, which sometimes I am, then it's either or they are actually trying to get the ball. So it's like it's understandable, right? It's like you can't be confused as someone's to the reactions of someone based on something you've done. I have been definitely upset with. I'm trying to think. There was only like one or two times where I was actually angry. It was not footy sevens. It was a men's game at RA,
Okay.
and it was not even something that happened to me. It's something where like the other team was blatantly dirty. The ref was not the greatest, and then one guy had actually injured one of our players from like a really late challenge. Like the play
Okay.
was somewhere else, and he just like cleaned him out, and then he got injured. And I was like, kind of like, yo, dude, like I get it. You want to play hard, and you guys are trying to prove a point, but what the hell was that kind of thing, right? And like
Mhm.
that's the only time I ever got like super upset. And like I actually just yelled at the guy. I was like, yo, you're an idiot. Like you shouldn't be playing, kind of thing, right? But it like happened like once in like I've been playing for uh 28 years or something, right? So it's pretty rare.
I Yeah, I think it's outstanding because anybody that knows me knows that I can get very passionate. It's a euphemism that we'll use. I can get very passionate. And I've been in situations that I'm not very proud of. And so I always admire people like you and Gavin because I know Gavin's a big dude
Yeah,
and he's a boxing dude as well. He's been practicing boxing for 10 plus years or whatever.
yeah, something like that. He martial arts before that, so he has like BJJ and all that stuff as well. So
He's got like an inner peace and it's kind of I think you've got a very strong inner peace as well. So I admire people like that that are able to keep their calm, but sometimes you do like that idiot that you got mad at, like he's being an idiot, right?
yeah,
So
I know. And it's just like the situation is like I understand it too, because you kind of if you're that team and everyone knows that team or those players on those teams, they basically take as much as they're allowed by the ref. They don't really consider anything. They're like, oh, I'm playing by the rules. But it's like
mm,
they have no inner conscience. It's kind of weird because I don't really understand that. Like why you could physically hurt someone for no reason other than the fact that like, you're like, oh, I'm a tough guy. Like it doesn't seem logical. But just like I don't know, a lot of those teams now that I'm older, if they're playing like that, I kind of just sit on the side and I'm like I'm more an observer and I don't want to play just for the sake of like me to get injured. I will recommend sometimes even like, yo, let's just like give this game to them. Like the ref is not doing anything. If the ref is good, then no problems. But there are those situations where that definitely can occur and like there's no point.
I think at this point I'll start off by saying welcome everybody. This is episode 13 of Getting to Know. Today, my guest is Mr. Cam. He's been on and off playing with us for a long time. A lot of you guys will know his face more as an opponent or as a referee, but he has played on on a handful of our teams full time. The reason why I picked him to interview today is because he is a recognizable face amongst the club for many reasons, and also because I wanted to have a chat with Cam. I like him. I think he's a great guy. Like I said, he's got an inner peace that I respect. He's got a skill for the game. You guys noticed in that toilet paper video, he pulled off some really, really neat moves that I enjoyed. And people called that out to me in text to me after I sent that video out. They're like, man, Cam and a few others, they like really pulled it off. And everybody loved the video as a whole. It's just more of like, it's good to have different perspectives. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about that I can relate to you about is from a referee perspective, you know? And like one of those things, how frustrating is it when, you know, I get upset sometimes when I shouldn't, but sometimes there are refs that aren't putting in the effort. And it can be really frustrating as people that are proud and try to put in the effort themselves. Like I have my off days, but for the most part, when I showed up to a shift, I like to try and give it most of my effort, if not all of it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, um, I definitely have a lot of off games as well, but like I said before, it honestly depends on how players communicate with the referees, because I've even had some instances where like it's like the funniest thing. Someone will just come up to me at halftime and be like, "Hey ref, listen, I think the other team's been playing too physical." I think they just make a comment. And then all I do is I call like one foul that I think is like borderline, even 50-50, even by some other measures, I'm like, yeah, that wouldn't even be a foul. I just call it one or two, that's it. And then the rest of the game, plays the exact same as the first half, but the fact that you had that interaction and you made like an actual tangible response to their concern, they come back and they're like, oh, we appreciate you did an amazing job. Even though it's like one or two small things, like the fact that you have that conversation and there's actually like, you're like, yeah, I could see that being a foul. So you kind of just give it to them. And then there's no issue. There's no fight. There's nothing. I'm like, wow, that was actually rewarding for me to get that feedback. And then not even adjust, just acknowledge that like the level is different or their perception is a little bit different. Nobody complains about it. It could be a foul, but you know, you just give it to them, and then you have a much more peaceful result of a game. Um,
Yeah, I have to work, and I've gotten a lot better, but I still have to work on the side as a player communicating to the referee sometimes because I get carried away. But when I'm a referee and players come talk to me, I do my very best. It's interesting how on the other side of it, I can actually be very calm and try to engage players and listen to them and be kind of like there's something that I lit I'm watching all of this masterclass and stuff, and there's something that I listened to recently that was very, very true. It said that empathy isn't about the other person being right. It's simply about understanding where the other person is coming from. And that kind of was like, even though it might be obvious to a lot of you watching, to me that was like a light bulb moment because I always figured that empathy was about everybody's right and we kind of have to find the middle right. But it's like they could be wrong, but being empathetic is understanding that they're just frustrated about something and getting to the root cause of it. And I don't know that it might be obvious to you, it might be obvious to a lot of people, but for me, it was like, oh, I get it now.
yeah, no, refereeing is very interesting because like I enjoy it very much, and I like to always improve. So even certain interpretations of the rules, if someone asks me a question that I know they're wrong about, I'm like, oh no, this is how it is. I'll actually go and read the rule and be like, are they sort of just misunderstanding, or is that their interpretation, or is it situational, right? Because again,
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know, there's no recipe for refing a good game, really. At the end of the day, you're basically, especially for like footy sevens or rec soccer, you're kind of like giving a what's it called? Like you're selling them a product, and they want a product, and you're trying to make it most desirable or most like rewarding for them. So sometimes even if the rule is wrong, but everyone on the field agrees that that's how it should be, you're like, well, did I really do the right thing? I don't know. Like they're
Right.
all, yeah. So it's just I've had some games as well where everyone seems upset, and then after the game, everyone shakes my hand. They're like, oh, fantastic job. So like it's you can't really tell.
It is weird. It is weird because like one of the things that people don't know about referees in professional games versus referees like you and I and footy sevens and seven sides. Professional referees actually have a coach in their ear. There's someone that's watching upstairs and they'll give the referee advice sometimes if the referee is mucking up too much, or they'll have a chat with them at halftime. Here's an example. Copa America 2015, Argentina, um, Argentina versus Chile. It was the Copa America 2016. Argentina versus Chile. Chile got a red card 30 minutes into the game. Argentina got a red card 40 minutes into the game. There were yellow cards being thrown left, right, and center by this very, very like energetic referee. He came up, he used to give the cards like this. After the first half, he comes in the second half. I think he issued only one or two yellows. Why do you think there was a dramatic change between the first and second half? Well, the guy upstairs probably had a chat with him and was like, dude, if you keep going the way that you're going, there's going to be no players left on the game. Here's my advice to you. And that's something that people don't like. Having that extra support, knowing that you've got that extra backing is a big deal, because when you're in the pitch, oftentimes you're alone. And yes, we have a coordinator, and yes, they're watching, but there's also three games going on at the same time. And this isn't a knock on the way Footy Sevens runs things. This is simply the reality of the way. Our A Center doesn't even have a coordinator walking around. They just have the guy at the front desk, and that's it. You're alone. And so when you mess up and you feel bad, it's a very lonely place to be in. And
Yeah.
so I wish that more players, and I have to do this more as well. I'm not saying I'm blameless as a player, but I wish more players would be empathetic with the referee because he's alone.
No, it's interesting that you mentioned that because, like, I don't know, as a player, I was always respectful of the refs. Sure, sometimes they're bad, but I don't go up and like tell them they're bad, or I don't actually yell at them or swear at them or whatever, right? Um, so it just depends which environment you're in. It can be, like you say, very challenging to get results or improve your actual current reffing game.
Hmm.
At RA, I do mention if I'm on field one, whoever is at the desk, I will tell them like, oh, by the way, if you notice anything, let me know after the game, right? Because again, sometimes I'll ref a game and like both teams are upset, and then the manager or the owner's there and it's like, yo, you refed a fantastic game, and I'm like, okay, sure, like, you know, I mean, I think it's if everyone's happy, you did a good job, and if nobody's happy, you almost kind of did a good job because you don't want one team to be really happy and the other team not to be, unless there was like a fight or something like that.
Mm,
So
interesting. Interesting. I could talk a lot about the refereeing stuff, but I just wanted to touch on it a little bit to kind of give people a different perspective on things because part of the game is being a ref and is part of the game is having a referee, pardon me.
yeah,
But like let's talk a little bit more about you. For example, you're in Vancouver right now. So you're stuck over there as far as
yeah,
as we were talking earlier.
basically, yeah.
So what are you doing out there?
Okay, so I'm in Vancouver because March break, which is like almost 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I had a break and I decided to visit my girlfriend for March break before going back to school and teaching for 5 weeks at the high school.
Okay.
So basically, as soon as I left, a bunch of people on the flight had canceled. So I was like in my seat and everything was booked like pre-flight. I get there, I sit in my seat. There's nobody 3 rows in front of me and nobody 3 rows behind me. I have a mask and everything because I was like, I don't know the situation. Then when I land in Vancouver, there's like zero people at the airport. I'm like, what?
Wow.
Like literally, like I walk through and my girlfriend's like, I don't know what's going on. You're like the first person to come through. It was like insane. And then the next day, my return flight got canceled. There's news everywhere like COVID, like you can't travel by plane. And I was just like, okay, whatever. I guess I'm here. All my flights in April got canceled, and I'm just like, well, everything's shut down in Ottawa. I have no work. All the coaching, all the soccer leagues, everything was closed, and that's
Mhm.
primarily summer stuff. So I was like, okay, might as well stay here until things clear up, which might not even end up being the summer. So yeah.
Yeah, there's no telling when things will clear up, but like I was saying before, if I had to be quarantined anywhere, it would definitely be with like it would definitely be in Vancouver and definitely accompanied, you know?
Oh,
So it's nice that it's in a way you kind of lucked out.
it worked out perfectly, man. Because like if I had waited even I don't know a couple of days, he wouldn't allow me to fly, right? So I would have
Right.
just at home, and most of my family, immediate family, anyways, in Ottawa right now, and they were super strict about the quarantining, so they didn't do anything for the first month. And then I was like, well, at least in Vancouver there were less cases. There's a lot of trails here, outdoor stuff. It's very nice. The weather was perfect. You guys got like snow every week or something. I was like, what's
We
going
got snow through to April, May even.
I know, and I was just like out there running on the trail. It was like 20 degrees every day. It said like next week it's all gonna rain in Vancouver. I'm like, well, here it is, like Raincouver, right? Instead it was sunny,
Mhm.
just like every day sunny. So it's
That,
been a blessing for sure.
that's beautiful, man. And like I I am super jealous. I'm super jealous. And I have to I guess that answers the question of like how you've been keeping busy. I have to like, you know, ask some of these questions now like instead of asking, you know, first memory with the club or favorite memory with the club, I'm going to ask a little bit of a more personal question to you. What got you into soccer?
Into soccer, well, I started playing when I was like 4 or 5.
Okay. You've had
Oh,
an interesting career too with it. Like career, I use the term loosely, but
yeah. So when I was like 4 or 5, my dad, I guess he was like a soccer fan. He didn't really play league or anything like that. He played at the University of Trent, and he had always enjoyed watching soccer, so he got all his kids into soccer. I played hockey, basketball, like everything throughout high school. So soccer mostly stick because I was the best at soccer of all the other sports that I had played.
mm-hmm.
And I played really competitively until about 15, and then in high school I had 2 years left, and I there was a merger between two clubs in Ottawa, right? And they were two big clubs, and I was going to play on that team, but the coach of the two teams happened to be someone who didn't like my dad. My dad is kind of the opposite of me, so he's very confrontational. He's very like, you're a idiot, you know. He'll swear at you, he'll get in your face, he'll be like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, he makes people know that they're stupid. Like,
Wow.
yeah. So the coach did not like him at all, and he knew that if I was on the team, that he would have to deal with my dad every practice, every game. So I got cut actually. Um, yeah. And then at the time, I was like, well, that was the best team, and I was like, you know what, soccer's not for me, kind of thing. I didn't play from 15 until 19, and then my dad had decided like, oh, it's been a while, like why don't you get back into soccer, you know? So I almost didn't play. It was about 3 years, but almost 4. And then I played with the Fury for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and then that's when I got back into soccer, and I was
Hey,
taking it.
you went from not playing. You didn't play for 3 years, and you still made it into the Fury Academy as it was at the time.
Yeah, I was actually super out of shape, and I
That's
was not.
insane.
Yeah, I know. I was not confident because I had not played in like 3 years, right? And those are like your best 3 years. I played like, okay, so um, in the Uplands area, there's a lot of like immigrants, international students, and stuff like that, and they used to play all the time. So I would just go play like field ball with them. It's not organized, but it's like good dribblers can dribble well, and 10 people will be on you at the same time at all times, right?
Right.
Them for like quite a bit every now and then, but like not organized for 3 years, right? So it's like a different game. So it's not like my skills were not necessarily horrible. It's just like it's a different game, right? But my fitness was like really bad. So when I was trying out, I was kind of like, I probably won't make it, kind of thing. And then after a couple of weeks, I think it was like a month in the winter was the season. I think maybe February.
Mm-hmm.
Coach comes up to me and he's like, "Oh, like, how do you feel about defense?" Because I had always played center mid or right wing, and I was like, "Sure, I can play defense." So he put me starting string defender with the Fury. Yeah, for the Fury. So I played defense there for 2 years, and I actually enjoyed it a lot more because you can always see the field at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And since my fitness wasn't as great as when it was before, I just felt like a little bit slower, I guess.
Okay.
So like the center mid is always like you have to be there, you have to be quick, because you have to get the ball all the time first. So I kind of got used to having a little bit more time, seeing the field the whole time. If I want to, I can make the run down the wing and so on. So it became like when I got to that point, I got really passionate again in soccer. I trained a lot. I got in really good shape, and then by 21, that was after, because I was in the U20 team.
Okay.
So after that, I had stopped playing again because they had some weird thing going on in the club, and yeah, I guess everyone knows how that went. um, but
Yeah.
yeah, so I stopped playing about
Let's
21.
let's assume that people don't know how it went. For those of you that don't know, before the Fury was an adult league in the NASL and USL and all of that, they were actually just a local Ottawa player development club, whatever. And so they did. Dubord also went through the Fury Academy at one point. So it wasn't the same thing as the Fury that ended up folding anyways. But so what ended up happening with that club?
I don't know all the details, but there was a lot of like um, almost like money laundering. They just kind of pillaged all the money out of the academies and took it, and I guess they were the first big academy. I actually know John Pugh.
Oh yeah, okay.
I grew up with Gareth Pugh. Actually, we're in the same elementary school.
Oh,
His son, who played in England, and he was actually on my team.
wow.
With Yeah, so that was also interesting to like reunite with him. But he's a good guy. He's a good player. But like I don't really know all the details of it. I just know a lot of very weird like coach
Yeah.
player situation. Yeah, just
Fair.
untouchable. Like, um,
I will say this. One of the things I love coaching. I
yeah,
love coaching my boys. I coach U13, U14 for those of you that don't know. And I will say this very carefully, very diplomatically. There's a lot of unnecessary conversations. There are a lot of unnecessary conversations that happen that I think get in the way of pushing the game further in Canada.
Yeah,
And an example of that is clearly reflected in some of the practices that the Fury had. I've heard stories from an old friend of ours named Aaron and also from Erica about just poor politics.
very poor.
And it sucks. It sucks because as a kid or as a player, all you want to do is play and get better.
Exactly.
I thank you for sharing all of that with us because it's always interesting to know what motivates people and how people got good. You know, like Tarek and you are some of the more outstanding dribblers in the Footy Sevens league, and you've got really good ball control. I love some of your passes where you do like you're not even looking and you pass it. Like you practice a lot of that no look pass. You're just like,
Well, that actually comes from futsal. So
oh,
yeah, when I was young, I played a lot of futsal, and we had these like again, Ottawa was small, so we did like provincial tournaments, and our team was like very good. Like we went to France.
wow,
Um, yeah, we played World Cup in France when we were 12.
sick.
Yeah, it was insane. So we were there for 2 weeks, and we ended up like 30 something out of 82 teams.
Wow, that's amazing. That's not
Yeah,
bad.
it's pretty good. Like it was so funny. Our coach was like, he was floating our egos so hard because the first day I think we had like a win and two ties, or two wins and a tie, or something like that. And he's like, "Oh, that's the best any Canadian team has ever done in this tournament." You know?
Wow.
Oh, and then we lost the next 5 games like horribly. It was actually super funny because we went to the finals to watch. Right, we like got out before even the elimination round, and
Okay.
I was watching this game, and I was like, "Wow, these guys are super good. Like, how old are they?" And my dad's like, "Oh, they were in your division." I was like, "What the hell? They look like men." Like they're all like 5'8" and like running crazy. I was like, "What? There's no way." Because like I grew really, really slowly. So not even like when I was 18, I was like 5'5" or something. Like
Okay.
super short, right? So like when I saw these guys, I was like, "Wow, they're giants." Like, what men's team is this? And my dad's like, "Oh no, that's Lyon, and that's the other team, and they're like in the finals, and they're 12." I'm like, "What?" Like,
That's
um,
nuts.
yeah. So like we had that same team, and we played provincials all the time. We had the same team for futsal, and I just got used to where everyone moved at all times because we had the same team for so long back then. There were not many clubs, so if you had a good team, like you stuck together, right?
Okay.
So I just knew where everyone was at all times. So in the gym, it's a lot more small, so you have to be really deceptive in how you're doing things. So I
Mm-hmm.
just got used to like one season I only did back heel passes. Like every pass, you could be in front of me and I would turn around just to back heel pass, like so unnecessary. But I was just like, I want to try it, right? So yeah, so now when I do it, I didn't practice it anymore. I got used to passing a certain way, and when you do things when you're young, you just kind of develop that like affinity for it.
Right.
Yeah.
That was fascinating. That was fascinating. One of the things I really have really enjoyed out of all of these interviews is that I've been able to, for the most part, find out something really fascinating about everyone. Like I just visited Kara earlier today. She was on episode 4, I think, or 5. She was telling me how we were sharing how Shram paints, and we didn't realize that Shram painted. And now you're sharing with me a story of how you went to the World Cup of futsal at the age of 12 representing Canada. I think that's nuts. That's
Yeah.
nuts. These are nuts. Like, who would have thought? Who would have thought?
But it wasn't even Canada. It was just Ottawa. There was another team from like Ottawa or Toronto, and there was another team from Vancouver. So
Okay.
yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah,
You went to France, you played against world class teams, and you finished in the top 50. You were better than half of the world
yeah, it's
that
true.
showed up. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. I'm very, very jealous and also very, um, I guess, I don't know. It's a mixture of like proud and amazed all at the same time. It's great. I here's I'm gonna skip to these questions because like I do have to ask you something related to the club, and I think these will be the easiest ones. Let's say that you're on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yeah.
You're on the $1 million question. You've got the phone lifeline. Who do you call?
Uh, I honestly like I'm not sure. I was going to say like maybe Tarek just because he has an answer for everything, even if it's the answer that put it in the answer. Um, but like yeah, I don't know enough of the members to really be like who's a perfect person to call for each situation.
I like that. I like the response you gave there. That was good enough. That was beautiful. Um, let's try this one, and you can like answer. You can even answer your brother, or well, I don't want to put. All right, put some bias already in there. You can answer however you wish, but like, who would you bring for the amazing race? Who would you want to partner up with?
Oh yeah. Maybe Adele. Like I've known him the longest, and
Oh,
he's
really?
yeah. I met Adele in probably the first team I played for with Footy Sevens. It was Southside something or other with
Okay.
Stephanie Cote Lapointe, and I don't know if you know her. She played
Yeah.
with yeah. So she had a team, and there was again guys from the hood who were like, "Yo, we're playing in an organized league. Like, you should come play." So I went to play, and he ended up being on that team, and that was quite some time ago. I was 26, so 7 years ago.
I'm gonna look that team up on Footy Sevens and probably put a little blurb on here. That's crazy. That's neat. That's neat. That's
Like
neat.
Christian was also on that team, and that's the first time I met him.
Christian, who used to be on Smashville.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Very interesting. I I thank you for answering those as best as you could. I know that it was a little different, and I want to just jump now to questions that are independent of the club, that are personal to you. Pivo's 10 questions. So here we go. Question number one. Um, what is your favorite word?
I don't really know all the time. It's probably something like maybe simplicity.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I
I
like it.
like simplicity across the board about anything. Like if it's done really, really well, you can do it simplified, right? So yeah.
I like it. What is your least favorite word?
Uh, these were actually tough questions. I'm not very good with words. I picked scab.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm more like an observer, a researcher. Like I'll study a lot, so I observe more than I talk most of the time. So when
That's
you had a list of questions, I was like, oh no.
uh scab, okay. What turns you on emotionally, spiritually, or sexually?
um, again, when something is like done with like elegance, it's like very like simplified.
Mm,
Like it could be across anything. So if you are able to, uh, we'll put it in terms of soccer. If you have a pass touches every single player one or two times into the net, final goal is just a touch, then it's like a very beautiful thing to watch, right? It's like very elegant, it's very sophisticated. You've done something that looks visually stimulating, like you know.
mhm. That explains a lot of your playing style. Interesting. Interesting. What turns you off emotionally, spiritually, or sexually?
Easy when someone's yelling at me when I'm refing. Hey ref! Hey ref! Like what the hell is wrong with you, man? Like
Okay. Yeah, I hate that too. What sound or noise do you love?
anything rhythmic. So rain falling, thunder, even keyboarding. Like if someone's tapping away on a mechanical keyboard and it's consistent, anything that sort of has yeah. Go ahead.
No, no, no.
I thought you had like a point. Okay, yeah. Like anything rhythmic that's like the flows. You can have like nice music, jazz. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going, oh yeah, because I love the sound of like the old typewriter machines when
Oh,
someone really knows how to use it.
yeah.
Oh.
Amazing.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Uh, I would say like so I teach at the high school and I only chalkboard. So I'll basically I'll give them notes in either video format or through Word document or PDF or whatever. But everything in class I chalkboard. So what will happen sometimes is I have like this it's a chalk holder. If the chalk was all the way in, the metal can scratch on the board. It's obscene. So probably that happened like maybe one or two times over the semester, but whenever it happens, I'm just like, why did I do that?
I have to ask you a question here, interject.
Yeah.
What subject did you teach?
Um, so I taught a bunch of different classes. My background is math and chemistry.
Hmm.
So I taught a grade 9, 10 general science, and I taught grade 12 chemistry. Yeah.
All my favorite teachers, that's not true. I've had a lot of good math teachers, but a lot of the cool guys were in chemistry.
Yeah. Well, you get to blow stuff up, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes I'll do an experiment or like a quick demo that has nothing to do with the content, just so they're like, "Whoa, what's that?" And then I'm like, "Okay, now back to what we're talking about."
Smart.
Yeah. Or you set up a bunch of beakers, and they're like, "Oh, sir, are we doing a lab today?" And I'm like, "Oh no, that was from yesterday. We have to put this away." It's like,
Look at you. Already pulling off tricks. Nice. Um, what's your favorite curse word?
uh, I don't really curse that often, and especially since right now, like I'm teaching with kids or coaching or something like that, so I probably would just say shit.
Fair enough.
One that can fly under the radar most of the time.
Yeah. What profession other than your own would you
Yeah,
like to try?
chef to cook. Yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, chef. I always love to bake and I cook as much as I can, but like I'm only good at doing things that I know how to do, like which is mostly Italian dishes. So like so like for this quarantine process, I've been making like my own gnocchi from scratch and like pasta and stuff like that. But I don't know how to make like sushi or anything like that. I think it would be amazing to do all that other stuff.
Wow, that's really impressive. I mean, I um I respect that. I mean, I'm trying to get the I have a thought. I'm trying to get the words out. Sometimes I struggle. The thing here is like Italian dishes aren't easy to do well. They're not easy to do well because you have to make the pasta from
Yeah,
scratch in order for it to be good, right?
yeah. Yeah. No, it's very tough because the ingredients are like nothing. And so for certain things they'll be like, "Oh yeah, just like flour and potato and just mix it in until you know."
Until
Until
you
you know. And you're like, "What does that mean?" I had to make my gnocchi like for 2 weeks straight. So my girlfriend was like, "What the fuck again?" But like for 2 weeks straight, until I got it like consistently, so the texture was like really good, right? And then all that you need is the sauce. So it took a while, but like all the dishes are like that. They're super simple, a couple of ingredients, but it's all about the texture, consistency, the little bit of flavor, mostly subtle, and the rest comes from the sauce.
very, very cool. Very respectable. Yeah, I've tried my hand at cooking a few things here and there, but my strengths are mostly in some baked goods, but mostly in Asian cuisines. That's where my strengths lie. But I can chat about that another time. Instead, what I'm going to ask you now is, what profession would you never want to do?
Uh, Anything where I have to write something like document wise in like English or like law or something like that, you have to write a bunch of reports. Like I no.
Okay. Because you don't see it maybe as something that's elegant. It's not something where you get to have your creative juices flow.
Yeah, well, I guess that's another point. Like you get restricted, right? You have to. I mean, you do that in labs to a certain extent, where you kind of get stuck
Yeah.
in way you have to do things. But no, I just never really fancied writing, and even any class that I had where they were to have us write an essay, For instance, right now, even in Teachers College, every class, it's like a sociology degree. Every class is like, write how you feel, write this about indigenous culture, write this about minorities or whatever. It's a lot of writing, and it's so subjective that I get very confused as to, okay, I get you're giving me critique and you're grading me or reading this in some form, but how do I improve, or how do I make myself articulate a point so more people can understand like where I'm coming from, right? So it's that ambiguity that kind of just doesn't sit well with me.
The final question. This has been a great interview. Very, very interesting. A lot of topics covered. The final interview question here that I'm going to ask is, if heaven exists, what would you want God to say when you reach the pearly gates?
Uh, that he has a newly constructed, freshly groomed turf field waiting for me with all of my favorite players to play with.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Cam, thank you
Yeah.
so much for being our 13th guest on this amazing show. I thank everybody at home for tuning in to get to know Cam. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.
Take care.